Hello and welcome back. While I'm waiting for my airplane to arrive, I thought I'd go over some of the specific tools that I use for building and using a RC airplane, like the Kadet LT-40 that's coming. The first one is a Great Plains SIG machine. It's from Tower Hobbies and it's about $30. And this is what it looks like. It has two rods down here, two rods up here, plastic runners in between, and the airplane would sit here and here on the top, and it has these way to measure the distance from the front of the wing to where the center of gravity of the airplane should be. CG stands for center of gravity. And so you put the airplane sitting between here. In the manual, it will tell you how many inches or millimeters from the front of the wing the CG should be, and this is used to measure that, and the aircraft will balance, and when it is balanced you will have the CG. Typically what happens is, if it's slightly out of balance, the heaviest thing in the aircraft, other than the engine probably, which has to stay on the front, is the battery. So you move the battery inside the cabin back and forth a little to get the CG right where it needs to be. So that's how you use the CG, or center of gravity machine. Okay, next is the Great Plains AccuThrow deflection meter. That's the box. This is what it looks like, and it's sort of a clamp-like thing that you clamp onto either the ailerons, elevator, or rudder, and you measure the deflection of the control surface. There are three control surfaces: the rudder, elevator, and ailerons, and you measure how far it deflects when you move the stick on the controller, and that will tell you whether you have the proper deflection. And you would set a maximum deflection, which is 100%, and then you would set a dual rate, or a lower rate, lower. And the manual on the last page shows what those deflections should be in inches. And so we will do that when we get the airplane built and we're ready to fine-tune the deflection of the control surfaces. Okay, next is the precision prop balancer. Again, it's made by Flite. And what it looks like is it's two powerful magnets here and here, and a metal bar in between, and you mount the prop on it. And if you look carefully at this end, this bar going across here is not touching that magnet, and so there's only one friction point at that end. And you set it on the table, and you spin the prop, and that's a 12-inch prop, and that's about the biggest you will probably need. We're going to use a prop less size than that, and it'll sit there and spin, and if it's properly balanced, you'll find out. So it's a handy thing to have. You would be surprised what an out of balance prop sounds like, and you can tell by the sound very often that it's out of balance, and it looks like this one's in pretty good balance. So that's the prop balancer. It's from Tower Hobbies, and it's about $20. Okay, next tool is from Great Plains again. You buy it at Tower Hobbies and it's about $8. And what it is a it's called the Great Plains Dead Center Hole Locator. And what it has a spring on this end that you can push in, and you push out a drill on the other end, and then this cone-shaped thing here, you put it down in a hole, and you can find the center of a hole for drilling a pilot hole. And we'll use this when we mount the engine, because you have to make sure that the engine is mounted properly on the supports for it, and we'll use that when we mount the engine. Again, it's the Great Plains Dead Center Hole Locator from Tower Hobbies for $8. Okay, next is the covering tools that I use to cover airplanes with. And because I do cover an entire airplane from time to time, I have all of these tools. But the most important one, and the one if you don't buy all of them I would suggest you buy first, is this heat gun. It's from Hangar 9, so you get this from Horizon Hobby. It has a 2-position heat, low heat and high heat, which is good for taking wrinkles and minor problems with the covering, to get the covering flat and glued down properly. And so you'd have to have that to as a minimum to take the wrinkles out. Horizon Hobby sells this for $20, but it won't press the you don't use it to press down, because you have to keep the heat away from the covering, otherwise you'll burn a hole in it. What the manual recommends for the SIG Kadet LT-40 manual recommends is a heating iron to do the same thing. The heating iron that I use is again from Hangar 9, so you get it from Horizon Hobby. It's about $30. It's called the Hangar 9 Pro Seal. It comes with a variable temperature gauge, and in the manual for the SIG Kadet LT-40 it recommends using an iron like this to activate the heat and get it to glue down at a temperature of 220 to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and this is in the manual. And to shrink, to get all the wrinkles out, you use a higher temperature of 300 degrees Fahrenheit to 320 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's pretty hot, and so you don't want to be touching it, but you use this to hold those down. When it does get hot, I use a mitt. It's from a glove, I guess I'd call it. It's from Flite, and the Flite hot glove covering tool is from Tower Hobbies. It's $7, and it does allow you to put your hand in it, and if you're using the iron, you can, or sometimes if you're using the heat gun, you can use this mitt to smooth out and make sure the covering is glued down without burning your hands. The next item is this Coverite tool. Okay, it's made by Coverite. It has a low and a high, it has a variable temperature range here. Okay, and temperature range goes from 100 Fahrenheit to 305 Fahrenheit, and it has a special tip on it. It's rounded, kind of a tip. You got a flat side and a rounded side, and sometimes if you're doing corners or doing a seam somewhere, this is a very good tool. And the last tool for covering is a Flite trim seal iron, and it has a special flat tip that's very good for going over where the covering is joined together to make sure that it's glued down. So those are my covering tools, and like I said, if you don't get all of them, I might understand that, because but you got to have at least something to take the wrinkles out. And the two that I would recommend most is the iron and the heat gun, because they will both take the wrinkles out. The iron's probably a little bit more effective than the heat gun. The heat gun's a little bit cheaper. So that's the covering tools. The next tool is a one I use for when I'm for actually many things in RC, but it's an interesting tool that you can use for general purpose too. But it's called a DuraTrax Flashpoint. It's a digital device for measuring the temperature of anything, and it'll measure up to 400 or 500 degrees. I don't know what the exact limit is, but it's high temp. It will measure very high temperatures. And so this DuraTrax Flashpoint infrared temperature gauge you can get from Amazon for $23, and I use it to measure the temperature on the heating iron that you just saw. And you can also use it to measure the temperature of an electric aircraft of the electronic speed controller, because that gets hot sometimes. And you can use it to measure the engine temperature of the glow engine that it's going to be in the SIG Kadet LT-40. So there's a lot of good uses for it. The next tool I'll talk about is the micro digital tach, or a tachometer basically. It's from Hangar 9, and it will measure the RPM of the propeller, and it will measure both the it's not measuring anything now, but by this symbol over here you see that it's got two little symbols on it, and that means you're going to measure a two-bladed prop. If you press this button again, you get a three-bladed prop, or if you press it again, you get a four-bladed prop. So it'll measure two, three, or four-bladed props, and you can try it on your ceiling fan sometime if you want to try it out. But you'll measure the RPM of the propeller with that tool. That tool is from, because it's Hangar 9 brand, you get it from Horizon Hobby, and it costs $28. The next tool is a Great Plains precision Z-bend pliers, and I'll explain what a Z-bend is and how you use it. But basically, on the push rods that go from the servo to the aileron, elevator, or rudder, or the throttle to the engine, all have push rods, and the end of that push rod can, not always, but can use a Z-bend. And I'll demonstrate how this works in an upcoming video. And but it's a pretty good tool for that. Again, it's Great Plains Precision Z-bend pliers. Tower Hobby sells them for $20. Is a Dubro tubing bender, and basically what it is, you have a tubing for that will go into the tank, the fuel tank, and one of those tubes need to be bent to a 45-degree angle. That's what this does. This is the 1/8 size, and there's a 1/8 hole right there that you can see with my finger behind it. You slide the tube in there and you bend it to whatever angle you need, slowly. Again, this is the Dubro tubing bender. It's 1/8 in size. It's from Tower Hobbies, and it sells for $12. And it's great to do a nice gentle bend on the fuel tubing. So that's all of the specialty RC tools that I use, and thank you, and look forward to seeing you on the next video.